Imagine waking up in a country where centuries-old castles stand beside modern skyscrapers, where a train can take you from one of the world's biggest financial centers to a quiet countryside village, and where people from almost every corner of the world have built a life. For generations, England has been more than just another country. London became one of the world's great financial capitals. Oxford and Cambridge became symbols of elite education, and British music, television, literature, and fashion spread far beyond the country's borders. And every year, people still dream about moving here. But there is a problem. England isn't cheap. Housing is expensive. Rents have risen dramatically over the long term. Public services are under pressure, and building a comfortable life can be difficult, especially in London and the southeast. So why do millions of people still want to live here? Why would someone leave their home country, cross thousands of miles, and choose England? The answer isn't simply money. It's something much bigger. And to understand it, we have to look at what England offers that many other countries simply can't replicate. There are very few places on Earth that have such a powerful global identity. You don't need to have visited England to recognize London. The red buses, the black cabs, Big Ben, the River Thames, Buckingham Palace, and the skyline surrounding the City of London are instantly recognizable around the world. But England's appeal isn't just about famous landmarks. It's about familiarity. English is one of the world's most widely used languages, and British culture has been exported across the planet for centuries through literature, education, entertainment, business, and technology. For someone moving from another country, that matters. You can arrive in England and already understand the language. You can watch familiar movies, follow global news, study at internationally recognized universities, and work with companies whose names you have known for years. That creates something incredibly valuable for immigrants, a lower cultural barrier. And then there is London. London isn't simply the capital of England. It is one of the world's major economic centers. Finance, technology, consulting, media, fashion, law, and international business all collide here. For ambitious professionals, that concentration of opportunity can be difficult to ignore. But London isn't the whole story. Manchester has transformed itself into a major center for technology, education, culture, and business. Birmingham remains one of the UK's largest urban economies. Leeds has become an important financial and professional services center. Cambridge has built a reputation around science and technology. Oxford attracts students and researchers from around the world. And cities such as Bristol, Liverpool, Sheffield, and Newcastle offer something different again. England is not one experience. It's dozens of different experiences packed into a relatively small country, and that brings us to one of its biggest advantages. One of the strange things about England is how much variety exists within such a small geographic area. You can live in one of the world's busiest cities, or you can move to a quiet village surrounded by fields. You can spend your morning commuting through London's underground network, or spend the weekend walking through the Lake District. You can study at a centuries-old university, then work for a modern technology company. You can live beside a football stadium or in a small coastal town. That flexibility is a major reason people are attracted to England. And then there is education. Universities such as Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial College London, University College London, and many others have global reputations. For international students, an English degree can provide more than an education. It can provide access to a global professional network. People from different countries meet at English universities, build friendships, create companies, and sometimes stay permanently. Education, therefore, becomes part of England's immigration ecosystem. Students arrive to study. Some find jobs. Some build businesses. Some start families. And eventually, they become part of the country itself. This is one reason England's population has continued growing. The latest ONS estimate puts England's population at approximately 58.8 million in mid-2025. Population growth has slowed compared with the unusually rapid increases seen in the early 2020s, but international migration remained the main contributor to England's population growth in the latest year. And that tells us something important. People aren't just visiting England. Many are choosing to build their lives here. But there is another reason people choose England that doesn't appear on a tourism advertisement: institutions. England has something many countries spend decades trying to build: a relatively predictable institutional environment. The courts, universities, financial institutions, professional services, public administration, and business regulations all operate within long-established systems. For businesses, this predictability matters. For wealthy individuals, it matters. For international students, it matters. And for ordinary families, it matters too. Because when you're deciding where to build your future, you're not only asking, how much money can I make? You're also asking, will my children have good schools? Can I access health care? Will my qualifications be recognized? Can I build a career? Will my rights be protected? England doesn't have perfect answers to these questions. Far from it. But it has built institutions that millions of people already understand and trust. The NHS is perhaps the best example. The National Health Service was created around a simple idea. Healthcare should be available based on need, rather than the ability to pay at the point of use. That principle remains enormously attractive. But the reality is more complicated. The NHS has faced severe pressure, particularly in England. In March 2026, the overall NHS waiting list in England had fallen to around 7.11 million, its lowest level in 3.5 years, while the number waiting more than 18 weeks had also fallen substantially. Yet, millions of patients were still waiting for treatment. So healthcare is simultaneously one of England's greatest attractions and one of its biggest challenges. That contradiction appears again and again. Because if England is so attractive, why isn't everyone living there? The biggest answer is simple: cost. The England people imagine from movies isn't necessarily the England people experience after paying their rent. In June 2026, the average private rent in England reached approximately £1,446 per month, while average house prices reached around £292,000 in May 2026. And those national averages hide enormous regional differences. London is in another category entirely. Housing costs can consume a huge portion of household income. For young people, buying a home can feel like a distant goal. For families, childcare and transportation add additional pressure. And for anyone trying to live alone in a major city, the mathematics can become brutal. This creates one of England's biggest contradictions. The same cities offering the greatest opportunities often have the highest living costs. London gives you access to some of the world's best connected industries, but that opportunity comes with an enormous price tag. And this is why many people don't actually move to London permanently. Instead, they move around it. They live farther away. They commute. They choose Manchester, Birmingham, Leeds, Bristol, or smaller towns. In other words, people aren't necessarily choosing England because they believe life here is cheap. They're choosing it because they believe the opportunities are worth the cost. At least for them. And then, there is something England has that is extremely difficult for another country to manufacture: global connectivity. London is connected to the rest of the world by an enormous network of airlines, financial institutions, universities, businesses, and communities. Walk through central London and you can hear dozens of languages within minutes. That diversity isn't accidental. It is the result of decades of migration. Indian communities, Pakistani communities, Bangladeshi communities, Nigerian communities, Polish communities, Irish communities, Caribbean communities, Chinese communities, Middle Eastern communities, and countless others have helped shape modern England. For a newcomer, finding people from your own cultural background can make an unfamiliar country feel less unfamiliar. You can find your food, your language, your religion, your community, your festivals, your businesses, and sometimes even your neighborhood. That creates a powerful network effect. People move to England because people they know are already there. And businesses follow people. Universities follow talent. Talent follows opportunity. And opportunity attracts even more people. It's a cycle that has helped make England one of the world's most internationally connected societies. But that cycle is now being debated more intensely than ever. The UK has sharply reduced net migration from its recent peak. ONS provisional data show long-term net migration fell to about 171,000 in the year ending December 2025, almost half the revised 331,000 recorded a year earlier. The government has also tightened rules around immigration and international students. So the question is changing. It's no longer simply, why do people want to come to England? It's, how many people can England realistically absorb while maintaining the quality of life that attracted them in the first place? And that may be the country's biggest challenge. Despite everything we've discussed, millions of people continue to see England as an attractive destination. And perhaps the reason becomes clearer when you stop comparing countries using one statistic. A country isn't simply a salary. It isn't simply rent. It isn't simply taxes. It's the combination. England offers a rare mixture of global career opportunities, world-class universities, cultural influence, established institutions, English language access, diverse communities, historic cities, and relatively easy connections to the rest of Europe and the world. For a young professional, that combination can be extremely powerful. For a student, it can open doors. For an entrepreneur, it can provide access to customers, investors, and talent. For a family, it can offer a familiar education and healthcare system. And for an immigrant, perhaps the biggest advantage is that England already has millions of people who have made the same journey. You aren't necessarily starting from zero. There is already a community waiting on the other side. So, why does everyone want to live in England? The truth is, not everyone does. And England has serious problems. Housing is expensive. Rents are high. Healthcare faces enormous pressure. Public services are stretched. And wages don't always rise fast enough to compensate for the cost of living. The dream can be much harder to achieve than the postcard suggests. But people don't move here because they believe England is perfect. They move because they believe the opportunities outweigh the problems. That's the difference. England has something incredibly difficult to measure: possibility. The possibility of studying at a world-famous university. The possibility of joining a global company. The possibility of starting a business. The possibility of building a multicultural life. The possibility of living in one of the world's most recognizable cities. And perhaps most importantly, the possibility that your children could have opportunities that weren't available to you. That is why, despite the housing crisis, despite the cost of living, and despite the pressure on public services, people continue to arrive. Because countries aren't attractive simply because life is easy. They're attractive because people believe life could become better there. And for millions of people around the world, England still represents exactly that. Not perfection, not an easy life, but opportunity. And perhaps that is the real reason why everyone still wants to live in England.